Hello everybody, welcome to the latest episode of The Jump Show. Before we start, me, Jake and Dan would like to pay our respects to Michael O'Sullivan, who sadly lost his life following a fall at Thurles last Thursday. A young man with all the talent in the world, a jockey who had some wonderful days in the saddle, perhaps his brightest accolade coming at the Cheltenham Festival when he won the Supreme Novices Hurdle aboard Marine Nationale. Not only was he a jockey of remarkable talent, he was also a lovely human and individual, had many friends, and we send our condolences to them and his family at this darkest of times. For all of us in racing, I find as we move forward with it, it becomes more of an insular world, and we're all a bit of a fraternity, a bit of a community. And when we lose one of our own, it's felt that little bit more deeply and that little bit more personally. It's a devastating shock, and all of us at the Jump Show are sending our best to Michael O'Sullivan's family and his friends. It's the starkest of reminders that this is the most dangerous of sports, and these jockeys risk their lives for our entertainment every day. Rest in peace, Michael O'Sullivan.
Hi everyone. Yeah, a sad and somber way to start this week's podcast after the very sad news of last week. Once again, joining me on the Jump Show this week, it's Jake Price and Dan Overall. Jake, how are you? It's been a tough week, isn't it, for everyone?
Yeah, tough week. That's definitely got to be said. Obviously our thoughts are still very much with the families, and hopefully everything goes well at the funeral. But yeah, no, obviously we're still full steam ahead into Cheltenham. Obviously we've had the handicap entries this week, which we're going to touch on later on in this video. So stick around for that to see what we think on those. And yeah, we'll try our best to keep the mood somber, but we'll crack on and do our best.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll also be reviewing our selections so far, won't we? What we've put up on these videos over the course of the season. And I'm pleasantly surprised to see just one non-runner by my name. That was a bit of an unexpected triumph for me. Dan, how are you doing?
Yeah, as you say, it's been a challenging few days for everyone involved. It's been hard to really think about much else. To be quite honest, it's been one of those weeks where, yeah, just where it's been a real tragedy. But I think I echo what you said in the intro and also on Racing TV. I think you were brilliant the other day in the way you put that across. That I think if there is any crumb of comfort to the friends and family, it's the numerous glowing tributes, not just about the rider Michael was, but the person he was. And I think that's probably the more touching thing to hear. It's just everyone who seemingly has met him had nothing but glowing praise to say. And yeah, just a real tragedy for racing. But I think the way that everyone so far has come together to support the family and friends has been admirable to see. So hopefully that continues, and we send them our best.
Yeah, nice words there, Dan and Jake. And we will continue with the podcast now. And we're going to do so by, first of all, talking about some results of the festival ticket giveaway we announced recently. So, Jake, I'll come to you with the first of these.
Yeah, so last week, obviously, we were giving away one pair of tickets to Champion Hurdle Day, courtesy of Unibet. So that was a pair of tickets going to...
The winner is Tom Neef. So congratulations, Tom. We will contact you below as well. And if you can get in contact with us, and we will make sure those tickets get to you. And I hope you have a fantastic day, and whoever you bring as well.
Yeah, well done, Tom. A really nice prize to win. Hopefully you have a great afternoon. And I think that Tuesday is probably going to be the best day in terms of quality, at least over the course of the week. So it should be a cracking day for you, Tom. It was a big week this week because handicap entries were announced on Tuesday. And I know that both Jake and Dan had to wipe away some of the drool from their faces as they were salivating about who was going where. And it certainly revealed a fair bit, that's for sure. We're going to start looking at Tuesday, as you usually would, chronologically, and go to the Ultima. So, Jake, I'll bring you in here. Quite a surprising, for me at least, entry of 49, which is a record low.
Yeah, the Ultima has been a bit brutalised, I guess. We've had obviously the National Hunt Chase has been put in as a 0-1-5 handicap. We've had the Kim Muir, obviously, again, a 0-1-5 handicap over pretty much the same course and distance. Obviously, it's on the new course, not the old course. But yeah, the Ultima has suffered as a result of all these handicap chases that we now have at the festivals. So it's hardly surprising, I guess, when you look at the race programme going into it. But Yeah, a record low entry of 49, which does open it up, and in terms of, you know, Britain have had an absolute stranglehold on this now, but Ireland have got a fair few of those 49 entries. So it'll be interesting to see if we can keep up our good record in the Ultima. Obviously, Lowry's Bar is entered, which is great to see for everyone who's on the anti-post prices. We now just have to hope that he doesn't go to Kempton this weekend. We're recording just before the day before declarations, so we don't know right now if he's going to be running or not. But fingers crossed, please, he doesn't run so that we have a better chance at Cheltenham.
Generally, if he runs at Kempton, it's one of the most ludicrous decisions I've ever seen in my entire life. It was already ludicrous to try and run him at Ascot, and the gods intervened with a bruised foot. So thank you, gods, for that, for helping us there. But they said purposely they wanted to avoid Kempton because it would be decent ground and not a great stamina test for him. And honestly, if he runs there and not Cheltenham, I would it would be one of the most mind-boggling decisions I've ever seen because he will generally be 4-1 on the day for the Ultima, and they haven't had a festival winner since Steffi de Soy. You'd think they'd be desperate for one. It's just absolutely begging for him to run, and it just to me seems an absolute no-brainer. But we'll see. We're recording on Wednesday morning, so another day till declarations. If he's decked for the Coral Trophy, then I pray for the bruised foot to come back, to be quite honest. I might have to go throw some stones outside his box or something to save them from themselves.
I've got faith. I have a feeling they might just declare Imperial Saint for that race, actually.
We'll
Hopefully,
touch on him
common sense.
later as well.
Yeah, common sense will prevail, hopefully. The National Hunt Chase, Dan, come to you on this. I was very disappointed that Olympic Man hasn't made the contest, but I think even if he had, his jumping has been too abominable to have had a winning chance. White
Yeah.
Rhino hasn't qualified in time. He's probably the biggest name to be missing from that race, right?
Yeah, he'd been touted as his target for a while. I don't think they could get that other run in. Obviously, he fell last time out, and I think they've just struggled necessarily to get him back in time. So, yeah, that would be one of the big names. That's held up quite well, that race, actually. And it looks like it will be a decent affair. You'll have a few in there with chances. So, I think if the goal was to get that to be just generally more competitive and not a race for the almost would be third or fourth in a Brown advisory types, and it's worked because you've got a few very interesting horses there, and say marks in the mid to high 130s that would have no chance in the old setup, but now are leading festival contenders. I still don't agree with having freestaying handicap chases in 4 days and then a Midlands National at the weekend, but it seemingly has worked regards to the entries, and all the main protagonists are seemingly still there.
Yeah, it looks like a step in the right direction at least, doesn't it? Because that race, the National Hunt Chase, the last couple of years really has become a bit of a farce. I mean,
Yeah.
Willie Mullins benefit most years. So, yeah, this is much more competitive. Fred Winter, not the Boodles anymore. It's now the Fred Winter again. Back to you, Jake. Back an alien won't be going.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. He's ended up at Nace on Sunday in a Grade 3, the winning fare. So I'm guessing they're just going to stick to Ireland and have a home campaign in some graded races now, which is fair enough. But obviously, a few did fancy him for the Boodles or the Fred Winter as it is now. But other than that, all the main protagonists are basically in there. Just a shame that It's Bilbo, the Hemorrhage Bromhead horse, didn't get entered, unfortunately. That's why I put it up as a non-runner no bet because obviously I didn't know his well-being or what they were planning on doing with him. But yeah, he's not there. But other than that, pretty much every main protagonist was in there. So seemed all good on that front.
That race is begging for something just to emerge as a bit of a lurker, isn't it? Because you look at the top of the
It is,
market, and
yeah.
they're all horses off such bad marks, like mid to high 130s horses. And I thought I'd found one, and he didn't get entered either. So it was one of those where really,
Well done,
I
us.
think I might have found another one, but it feels like something will emerge, and it'll get a bit of momentum behind it. And if you can find something now, it's like 33s, 40s, could go off significantly shorter because the top of that market does not convince me at all.
No, but I think we've already got the winner, haven't we, with Terra Firma for Jack Jones? So let's just leave it at that. Okay, that's Tuesday done. Let's have a look at Wednesday because another three handicaps to talk about here. The Coral Cup, or two handicaps. The Coral Cup has got the most entries of all the races this Cheltenham Festival, Jake, with 96. If I hear any more about Kopek to me already, I think I'm going to scream.
Well, I'm going to tell you all about him, Tom. Yeah, no, obviously 96 entries. It's always the most competitive race, I think, to try and find, especially an anti-post angle for it. I've never even looked at it until we get entries, to be honest, just to see what's in there. And then again, you probably want to wait till weights before you're getting stuck in anyway. Kopek to me, yeah, as I said, he's obviously been the talking horse in the race. Kitzbühel was the talking horse, but he's not been entered at anything at Cheltenham. I think Aintree is probably the target for him after winning at the weekend. But Kopek to me, yeah, he's a horse who's come from France. He's had 5 runs over hurdles in France, despite the Racing Post saying he's only had 1 or 2. He's going to be rated probably around 136. That's his French mark converted. But he's obviously been bought by JP McManus for Willie Mullins. Would be having his first start for the team if he does turn up here at Cheltenham. So he's the one that everybody's getting excited about, and potentially could be a thrown-in horse. But then again, he could be an Castle de Mott from last season, who obviously ran in the Betfair hurdle and came nowhere. So
he was £10 willing on his Irish mark, wasn't he? Or something that's how it worked out.
Yeah. Because they do the conversions very oddly. So the BHA do it 2 times, so you just double whatever the French mark is ordinarily. But I have seen from a couple of people that apparently they do have discretionary power to up that if they feel necessary. So potentially he could be higher than 136 if they deem that necessary. But I guess they'll talk to the French handicapper to work that out.
When was the last time we had a horse win? Was it Diego de Charmil, who first start in the country, won the Fred Winter?
Potentially.
There's a bit,
yeah.
I don't think there's been another one since, has there?
Petit Soin was T1?
He was, he ran the Coral Cup, didn't he? Wouldn't that he might have been? Was he before Diego de Charmil or after?
I don't know. Yeah, he might have been.
It was a similar era.
Yeah.
But we're going back a while since that's happened.
Yeah.
It's not the done thing really these days. Obviously, Gaelic Warrior went close. So yeah, it's. I mean, he's entered in everything, isn't he? It's this Quebec, like pipe,
the Holy Trinity, as I like to call it.
Yeah, when he just scattergunning approach. I mean, he's got a load of Super Sundays in here. Jimmy Desoy's in here, hasn't been seen since running in the festival last year. Gold Tweets in here. Like you've got this. Coral Cup always attracts like the strangest amalgamation of entries. Like that's why, as Jake said, it can't be a race you touch with a barge pole, really Ante-Post, unless. I mean, a lot of people are keen on Be Aware, but this is the kind of reason I couldn't really be interested at any real price, because you're going to get an absolute minefield of a race, generally speaking. It's hard enough to work out on the day, let alone at this stage. And entries actually bounced back. Last year was really weak, I think. It was 72 last year. We're back up to 96. I don't think there's any rhyme or reason behind that, just coincidental, it would seem.
Yeah, make a good point. Perfect to me. I can't get my head around that one. But we shall see. Cross country handicap down. That's a big plus, isn't it? Back to a handicap after being a conditions race for so long. Only got the 31 entries, but it should make it more competitive.
Yeah, it's never going to attract massive amounts of entries because it's still a specialist race, and you generally would have had experience. Obviously, you've got a few French entries in there as well, but it's definitely made it more competitive. Just look at the market; that'll tell you all that. And as a result, it is a more interesting race. So, very much happy about that change. I think that was one of the more sensible ones they made. No real surprises here for the most part. I guess the only one, maybe that Hip Hop Conti. I don't think he got entered. I think he won a race in France probably about a couple of weeks ago and was towards the head of the betting, but I'm not sure if that was just a bit of a dart at the pricing from the bookmakers based on so many unknowns. But he's the only significant non-entry I could see. Other than that, most of the main protagonists have stood their ground so far.
And Jake, back to you. No Madara at the festival, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, he was obviously targeted for the Grand Annual and the plate, but unfortunately he got an injury after his run in December, and they didn't really know at the time like how that was going to affect him. But he's been out of training since the 3rd of January, according to the BHA website. So yeah, he's just a horse who's injured and won't be going to the festival, unfortunately. Although he would have been quite well fancied, I think, for a plate.
The Grand Annual is another race which is just so open and so. I mean, the fact that Jazzy Matty is among the favourites is one of the most damning. How is the year 2025 and Jazzy Matty is favourite for a festival handicap for Kean Collins? I know I said I'd keep an eye on Kean Collins, but I didn't mean this closely. Like, generally ludicrous. I mean, the way this is shaping up, I think it's got to tempt some of those real high-class horses into this, because I think they'd go off really short. Like Liberty Hunter's 8-1, non-runner no bear. He runs in here, he'll go off 3-1, wouldn't he? Like off 151, because there's nothing in there at all that I think would be of much interest at all. Even a Touch Me Not or something like that would maybe divert to here based on what a mark he gets. Like, it's crying out for one of those just to take their chance here rather than the Champion Chase and the Arkle, because it looks pretty weak to me.
Yeah, hopefully a strong wind will blow a Western Zephyr and that will come out on top of the Grand.
Well, I mean, at this rate, if none of those classic types go, then yeah, sure, because
Do you
it's
know what? Do you know what we were saying, weren't we, a couple of weeks ago that we don't know what the story is. The Western Zephyr is even still in training. Jake checks and he confirmed that he was, but he has actually officially been entered in the Grand Annual. So that's the big
yeah.
first tick on the list.
Was he entered anything else? I presume not.
And the
No.
plate as well, yeah.
Oh, was he?
No, he's in the plate.
Yeah.
No, he won't. He won't go. He's a 2 miler through and through. He won't
Yeah,
go.
he won't. He won't run the plate. Yeah, you're fine. Don't worry.
Talking of the plate, that's the next race to talk about because it's on Thursday. 59
Ugh.
and 3, despite 61 being in the novice handicap on the same day. Um, Waterford Whispers, Dan, needs to qualify this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I've been very much saying for him. He's looks tailor made for this race. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Obviously, the rearranged Punchestown card over 2 miles, short of his ideal, but it's been the feeling for me that it's kind of been a bit of a working back from March with him. So he'll have to run at least a creditable race here to justify his position. Obviously, he ran well on Chase debut, wasn't exactly knocked around in the Grade 1 next time out. So I think he'll be fine. I think even a credible second would be more than adequate to go to March with a great chance and probably off quite a decent mark. Still harrowing memories from how powerfully he travelled in the pipe last year. I would have a leading chance, but he's not exactly been missed either. I think everyone can see it, really. Everyone harnesses on this Cheltenham on festival form now so much that he's a horse who really, obviously, he wasn't qualified and kind of has to put a decent run together, and he's still one of the market leaders, which I think tells you everything you need to know. Let's touch on Imperial Saint, because, again, this is just... You ran on trials day, and you didn't even enter him for a race at the festival. And he ran creditably on trials day. And he would generally be one of the only progressive novices in the plate. He would go off single figures. And you've decided, I mean, I understand running in the Pendle because it's quite weak and it just seems a bit of a no-brainer. But you've left yourself no options now. And I kind of prepared myself for this because I had heard an interview where they talked about potentially going straight to Aintree. They talked about going to Aintree for the Grade 1. And I was like, well, let's just pump the brakes slightly here. Like, say you finish second or third in the Pendle, completely possible behind Roubaud. You've got no business being in the manifesto. Where do you go? Because there's no 2.5 mile handicap other than over the national fences. So do you send him over the national fences? Do you step at the 3 miles or go back to 2? Because you've hamstrung yourself. So I generally don't understand why he wouldn't even get an entry. Because he would be 8-1 for that race. And he would have no better chance in any spring race other than this. So mind-boggling decision. Don't understand it. But then again, it's based on the Lowry's bar, back and forth. I'm not surprised.
As you can see, this has not irked Dan in any way, shape, or form, this decision.
Well, just make it make sense. I don't mind things being happen. It just needs to be logical, and this isn't. Not even entries. Generally mind-boggling. Makes
It is
no
quite
sense.
it is quite mind-boggling. I do wonder if it was an oversight and they meant to, but yeah, who knows?
I mean, the fact that obviously they entered other horses. I mean, they've clearly.
Yeah.
I'd say it's very much a case of actively deciding not to, but answers on a postcard.
Jake, Nürburgring's only option on Thursday is that race, and can I come to you too about the Pertemps because still got 2 races left to come to qualify in that.
Yeah, we got a qualifier on Saturday at Chepstow and then at Naas on Sunday. So there's 50 entries in the Pertemps, which is down on last year, and obviously only 8 horses maximum can qualify from this weekend out of a fair few who've been entered, obviously just in case they do qualify. So it could be a relatively weak Pertemps field, but obviously we're kind of looking on that trend anyway, since it's turned into a 4 runners to qualify type race rather than the 6. Obviously, with just every single race, we're getting 2 less qualifiers. So we're obviously going to get numbers down. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens this weekend. Gordon's got a fair few in on Sunday trying to get his last second Pertemps qualifier because he's managed to fail on every occasion. Yeah.
Absolutely cursed.
Jake, I'm going to stick with you actually for Friday because the county looks like a pretty strong race. Willie Mullins got plenty in there. No Storm Heart. Absurd given an entry. Was that quite late in the day in the piece?
I didn't notice if it was late or not, but yeah, it was very interesting. Obviously, Stormheart was a big one. He's not got a festival entry at all. He was quite well fancied, despite his rise for finishing second at the DRS. So yeah, it'd be a shame not to see him. But yeah, Absurd's in there, Ethical Diamond's in there. I'd imagine only one of them will run, but it will be interesting to see what happens with that. Lark in the Morning's only got this as an option as well, so he's an interesting horse. At least you know where he's going to run. But yeah, obviously Willie Mullins is the one that everybody wants to be with. Obviously he's won 5 of the last 9, Skelton winning the other 4. So I mean it is pretty impressive at the moment. But guessing which one of Willie Mullins is going to be the one is going to be the the biggest puzzle to take, I think. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see who runs out of Ethical Diamond, because obviously he's been laid out for it, and then Absurd, obviously he's been off for a while, but he won it last year, and I think he's only £6 higher in Ireland at the minute. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that shapes up.
He'll
Yeah,
have 6 or 7 again, won't he? Like he did last year. It was very much.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It was I don't think he really knew who it was last year. I think after Absurd one, he thought, I thought Risk Bell was going to be the one. So I think anything he generally runs there will probably end up having a chance, to be honest.
and Dan, with Martin Pipe, got 82 runners this year, entered from 87. So only down 5 from last year. I thought they really would try and qualify Bloodavati for this race. I thought it was going to be up his street, but they haven't. Wingman is another one who's missed out, and Carnique won't be going either. So a couple of big names in there are going to miss the race. But the big question is Carafon in there?
Carafon is in there. I think he's in a few, isn't he, Jake? I think he's very much got
He's in the Holy Trinity.
the same William Money Trinity, yeah, as tends to be the way. Yeah, as we talked about in the Martin Pub, a lot of those towards ahead of the betting at the early stages were almost banking on having at least 1 or 2 more runs, and that just hasn't happened for the likes of the horses you've mentioned. So it isn't exactly a surprise. It was more out of hope rather than expectation, I would say. So a few have come out, which have made some of the market protagonists obviously disappear completely from the betting. Nella Sixo is in. It's the only race he is in. I didn't think we'd see him after the real heavy fall we took the other weekend, to be honest. It looked pretty bad, but it's his only entry, which is unlike Gordon. I assumed he would have had a few more. So chances are he'll run, I guess, if all is okay. But yeah, I think he was running fine in that Potemps qualifier, but I think he's almost been a bit of a victim of the constant failures of every other horse in the Elliott Yard in terms of getting qualified for the Potemps. Like they basically got down the pecking order of up 6-0 you're up, Staffordshire Knott's failed, and Harsh has failed again. So you need to now step up to the plate, and I think that might well take its toll in the end, because he didn't deserve that fall at the weekend. But there you go. And I say it still looked competitive enough. It always is. And as Jake's mentioned, Willie Mullins has got several in here and several in everything else. So hard to really decipher.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same every year, isn't it, with that really impossible guessing game. Time for and I think everyone's favourite segment of the week. It's Jake Price Racing news updates. Jake, before we start on this, the first update you're going to bring us is about Only by Night possibly going to the Arkle. I think, in my opinion, I think this is an absolute no-brainer. Surely they have to go this route with her. I think she'd have a massive chance. I mean, everyone's saying Mashboro's going to win well now that Sergino's out, but I think she'd give him a race if she was well on song and travels her usual panache.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's obviously they left it open before before the news of Sergino. They left it open saying that the Arkle could happen if anything funny went on, and that has duly happened with Sergino out. So they have every right to take their chance. Gavin Cromwell's obviously got an absolute battalion for the mares chase if they all were to run there. So he would probably rather split them up anyway. So yeah, everything looks right for her to go for the Arkle, and that's probably where she's going to end up, I'd imagine. Another one who's kind of aiming at the Arkle is going to have to go there fresh now is Gidley Park. He was supposed to be running in the Pendle this weekend, but he had a setback, so he misses that. So it'd be interesting to see if he does make Cheltenham or not. I think Harry Fry's going to keep everyone updated on that. And then the last important piece of news, obviously last week we had the Grand National weights. And obviously, you look through, I know the way you're thinking of 160 looks very nicely treated. He's been duly backed into favourite. But the most interesting thing in terms of a Cheltenham podcast is we've got a lot of the cross-country weights already sorted. So Conflated's off 157, Delta Works off 157. I think the most harshly treated one, who's £8 higher than his Irish mark, is Stumptown, who's also been rated 157. And he's obviously favourite, like 9-4 favourite for the race. I really can see him drifting quite markedly come the day from that type of price, because as much as I probably wouldn't want to lay in myself, like you'd really be happy to take that on, wouldn't you? Of him off top weight, off a very lofty mark in a cross country handicap where a lot of the horses have been laid out for it, and he's just been running honestly and winning well. So yeah, I'd be happy to take on Stumptown. Some of the others that are a bit interesting: Galvin's 154, Thacker Duderi's 152, Cocoa Beach has got himself down to 150, which I find very
How
interesting.
did
If
that
we got
happen?
I know, if we got a soft ground, heavy ground, cross country, I'd be all over that, to be honest. But also, Dan's horse in the race, Bustleton's got 138, and because of the £20 range this year in the cross country, there's only £20 between top and bottom weight. He will actually be the exact bottom weight inside the handicap. So that has worked out very well for Dan.
Just
Finally,
needs
some
that
good
first time
news.
headgear.
Oh, it's going back on. Stable tour
Yeah.
confirmed. Visor or blinkers back on. They're going again. It's all coming together nicely for a change.
We're going to have a quick look at our selections so far and review them. Dan, start with you. Are you happy with what you've got so far in your Ante-Post book?
I mean, they're all massive prices. So, I mean, and a lot of them in handicaps. So, I mean, it's a bit of a ragtag bunch, if I'm being honest. But none of them were going to be shortness to a massive degree in the period because most of them haven't run. So it's. I mean, Western Knight is what he is. He somehow managed to regress rapidly on his last run and isn't even entered in the race, having beaten the winner of the race he was running last time. So that's just the Albert Bartlett, I think, summed up. Form reversals everywhere, makes no sense. Obviously, we touched on Imperial Saint, generally mind-boggling. He would have been 8-1, and he's not even in the race. See, Lowry's Bar is the great hope. He kind of needs to go there, otherwise, I'm probably not even going to bother turning up to the festival this year. That it's such is the disgrace that would be, and the rest. Look, they're all massive prices. Jungle Boogie's going for the race. I think it's been confirmed, but as is everything in the De Bromhead yard, it would seem, including Envoy and Hartwood. So interesting to see how jockey bookings pan out with those lot, and obviously that a lot depends on how that race. Generally, just the structure of it, 25-1, he won't be that, I'd say, but depending on who lines up in opposition will very much affect what kind of a bet that is. It could be a decent bet, it could be a very good bet. We won't know until declaration stage, such is the way the Ryanair often pans out. Obviously, 6-0 would have an okay chance. Obviously, I don't think he did himself any favours last time falling, but he still wouldn't be a 20-1 shot. I think he's a resolute stayer who would give you a run for your money. Toonsvator's in. Again, 40-1 was too big. He'll be I'd say 5 or 6 for Willie. Danny's ridden him in the past. I wouldn't expect Paul to ride him. I'd say he'll be maybe second or third string, but won't be 40-1. And say Bostleton was always too big at 33s, and I think the money will come for him. I think he'll go into. I don't think he'll be single figures. He could be around 10-12-1, something like that come the day. But it's early enough stages for a lot of these because a lot of them are in handicaps, and a few things need to just progress in order for the value to come out. But not thrilled, but at the same time, I wasn't overly thrilled this time last year, and we had 2 big price winners, so that's the way it can go.
Yeah, I think you could end up being the world's shrewdest man if Buston goes and wins the cross country. That would be some pick. And he has shortened a couple of points, so that's encouraging.
They've
As
all
is the
been
fact that
nibbled
he
at.
bottom weight. Hey,
They've all been nibbled. They've all been nibbled at.
yeah, they have
To
actually.
a
Yeah,
certain
yeah,
extent. Yeah.
yeah. Good stuff, Dan. Let's talk about Jake's selection so far. And I looked at this earlier, Jake, and I was delighted to see, also somewhat jealous, that I think every single one of your selections has shortened most of them considerably.
Yeah, it's looking a pretty decent book so far, isn't it? But obviously, as Dan said, that doesn't mean it's going to pan out in terms of actually getting some winners. But we're in good position, so that's the main thing. It's Bilbo obviously is the non-runner, but as I mentioned earlier, put him up non-runner, no bet, so no damage done there. Took a bit of a flyer, but sadly it didn't pay off. But yeah, if we go through the rest, obviously better days ahead. Tips at 16s now around 10-1. I think he's just got a solid each way chance. If we get some soft ground and it's a nice stamina testing race, then I think he'll have a great chance up the hill. 6.5, obviously she's the captain of the team, as I said at the time, and she's still the captain now. 8-1 into around 3-1. She's favourite on some boards now already as well, which I kind of alluded to a couple of weeks ago about how I thought that her and Marine might flip around in the market, and yeah, that seems to be happening. So very happy with that one. Obviously, it'd be great if she could go in. Carafon, he's the one that's shortened the least, 20 into 16s, and I think he's still actually a massive price. Obviously, the Martin Pipe is seemingly the target, having heard words from the likes of Darrell Jacob and Anthony Bromley. So it seems like this is going to be where he ends up. Hopefully, it is where he ends up. And if it is, I can see him going off a lot shorter. All it takes is one stable tour, one preview circuit night, like anything like that, and even declarations and weights coming out next week, etc. So I think he'll go off a lot shorter. I don't see him going off anywhere near 16s if he turns up for the race. Lowry's Bar, obviously, Dan's touched on that one. Don't really need to add much more. Cope de Board, such a shame. He's obviously going to be going for the Supreme rather than the Turners. Wrong race, 2 years in a row. Well done, me. But yeah, he's he's shortened, but obviously he's not going to be turning up here. Sam Majest is the big one. I was getting very excited yesterday when the entries first came out because Sam Majest was only entered in the Kim Muir. Sadly, he got put into the National Hunt Chase very last second. So that was a little bit annoying, but hopefully it kind of alludes to the fact that they're just thinking Kim Muir for him and they just stuck him in the National Hunt Chase just for good measure. But we shall see on that front. But obviously he's shortened into favourite now for the Kim Muir, and he would have an absolutely brilliant chance if he turns up. And then lastly, Woodhu as well. Obviously, I managed to sneak her in the last video at 12-1. She's already shortened into 6-1. The only fly on the ointment is obviously Kopek to me has now also joined her at 6-1 at the top of the market. So instead of sitting here on a strong favourite, I might not be sitting on a second favourite or something like that. But again, a good place to be, and I'm glad that she's on the team because her form is rock solid.
Yeah, strong book for sure, Jake. I have to say, yeah, you're unlucky with Kopek de Boer, but you know what? You know what? I would never completely discount it. You just don't know which way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I
Don't
think it
give
would
him
take
hope.
an injury, but yeah, don't give me hope.
It's the hope that kills.
I'm just going to go through my list, which is not quite as long as the other guys. I haven't had two selections actually in 1 week so far, so I've just got the six. Well, five because Olympic Man hasn't made the National Hunt Chase, which I was very disappointed about. But you know, I can understand why they don't want to qualify him or go there because his jumping was interminably terrible. So yeah, that's one to scratch off the list. Otherwise, I'm feeling pretty confident. The big Westerner's got a massive chance in the Albert Bartlett. She's just stayed in her box and has shortened into 7-1 from 12-1. We know that she's going straight to the race, so not a huge amount to be said about her, other than the fact that she still has a massive chance. Jubilee Alpha is the one that I'm a little bit confused by because she's drifted from 8s to 10s, whereas all she's had really is form boosts from rivals that have taken her on her races so far. So I don't quite understand that. Hollygrove Cha-Cha won the grade 2 the other day at Stand Down, the Jane Seymour. And then yesterday at Market Raisin, a filly who'd been beaten by her went and won pretty easily. So there are form boosts abound for her. I'm not entirely sure why she's drifting. Possibly the Nichols factor. I mean, he's struggling, isn't he, at the moment, really, to even get a winner. So that may be why. But I think she's got a pretty good chance. Ile Francais in the Ryanair, 7-1 into 4-1 now. I mean, that is quite something, considering how strong the race could potentially be. But I think he's one for the Shrewdies. They're all piling in, aren't they? Could easily get that easy lead, and hopefully he will do.
He won't get an easy lead in that Ryanair. Not a chance.
Well,
have you seen how many pace angles are in that race? God.
Yeah, I mean, Matata is in there. So, I mean, if he's there,
imagine him in a Ryanair. No need.
Terra Firma and Western Zephyr are the other two selections for me in the Boodles Grand Annual, and I'm very happy that they've been entered and look like they're going to the races. That's about as much as I can say about those two. Right, it's time for Ante-Post bet number 7 of our selections, and we're going to go for Dan this week. First of all, with a little fancy in the Kim Muir, Dan.
Oh, yeah, a race that formerly had been very kind to me. In recent years, not so much, but hoping to turn back the clock somewhat. I think at the time, even before the entries, it was looking like a race where there were many an unlikely runner towards the head of the market, and I still think that remains very much the same story. Obviously, Sam Majest for Jake he'd be a very much a live contender. He does the National Hunt Chase as an option. He also could potentially go to the Irish National route. Then you're looking through it, and I generally think I could find one or two. Midnight Half Red and Nine Graces, I think the only two I can see from the top 25 who I think will run in the race for sure. The rest, I'd say, are pretty unlikely, or you have to have serious questions, like Johnny Hu and Hastings, both for John Joe, both JP. Only one of them at max will run. Hastings was a bit disappointing the other day. Johnny Hu, I can't imagine, may go National Hunt Chase instead. Say Mr. Vango, you'd think Midlands National. It's just a list of really strange horses, generally just in behind the top of the market, who I'm not sure will end up lining up. And one horse who actually ran recently, who only has this as an entry, and I think this just becomes the very logical target for him, is Yearman. And now 20-1, non-runner, no bet, which I think is a very fair price. Obviously, he ran in the Haydock National Trial, the race he won last year, when we last saw him. He was bounding along merrily, tanking through the race, and had one of the strangest unseats you'll see about halfway through, where jumped the fence fine, just a slight peck, and I think Sean Flanagan was almost slingshotted out the side door. Like he would have gone very close in that race. I have very little doubt there. He was 4-1 for it, seemingly going extremely well. The fact that he unseated early enough has probably done him a favour in the long run because he hasn't had a hard race there. Obviously, it wasn't on deep ground either, so I have no real concerns about the effect that will have on him. It was an early enough unseat, we should be fine. I think after he won the race last year as well, he was towards the head of the betting for the Kimyor. I think it was very much looking like that was going to be an option because he won it off 133. It looked a fairly logical target to go for. But they ended up going to the Irish National instead. We went off only 8-1. Probably grueling conditions there. I think he probably felt the impact of Haydock thereafter. Didn't run really his race, but understandably so. This season, run 2 really good races in decent handicaps. He was third in the Troy Town on his seasonal reappearance, where probably looked a bit in need of it towards the end, but shaped well. He was then fourth in the Thyestes, where he went off 9-2 joint favourite. Just got caught a bit further back than ideal early on there. Had to make up some ground. Just tied a bit late on, but still shaped well enough. And that's a race that we know often is a great trial for big stain handicaps going forward. And also no shame in being fairly well beaten there because the Firesters ground generally takes some getting. So he's running off 144 at the weekend. No reason for that mark to change. So he'll get in no problem. Generally, you want it to be towards the head of the weights for this as well. As is, I think the last 6 or 7 winners have been rated between 137 and 145. So it tends to go to those towards the top of the weight. And you look at really what he's achieved in general with staying handicap chases, despite only winning one of them. Like, look at his runs at Ascot behind Victorino last season. That form has been getting franked time and time again. And I think now this rate, and now we've got the National Hunt Chase as a handicap, there aren't going to be many novices in this, as we've seen. Just look at the entry stage. I think many of them will divert elsewhere. So even though he isn't a novice and you're generally looking for novices, I think we could almost revert back to a more similar profile we saw probably 6, 7 years ago, where it was going to more traditional staying handicap chasers who'd had plenty of experience, who had won over further. Obviously, the Yard won this last year. We're a very different type, and I know the way you're thinking. Well, yeah, man, to me, is just a very tough, consistent handicapper who I think from this mark shapes like he still has another big pot in him. Obviously, the concern would be they potentially go to the Irish National again, but based on last year, I don't see why, because he was pretty well beaten there. He's higher in the weights now. This looks an easier target. Of Gavin Cromwell's other entries, you've got Now Is the Hour, who's towards the head, but I think he looks pretty much set to go to the National Hunt Chase. Mint Boy is the only other possible one who would be the kind of unexposed novice, but he has to run on Thursday at Punchestown and run creditably to even give himself a chance. But to me, yeah, man, would look the standout here. And at 20-1, I thought that was massive. He has the profile of horse to me for given his connections, given his handicap form in general. He'd surely be single figures. And if this race does cut up as I anticipate, he could well be towards the head of the betting. So 20-1 non-runner no bet, I think, is a very fair price.
I'm with you, actually, Dan. I think he would have gone very close to Haydock. That was absolutely bizarre.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it seemed to jump the fence all right and then just kind of went all haywire.
It was the slightest peck, and then I think Sean Flanagan literally got flown to the other side of the country. It was so bizarre to watch. Like, you didn't really, if you turned away after he kind of landed, you'd think, oh yeah, fine. Then you just suddenly realise there's no jockey on anymore, and you'd wonder what happened. But look, that in the long run, that may prove beneficial.
Good stuff, Dan. I think I like that selection. I have to say, 20-1 for the Kimyor. Okay, Jake, over to you. You got one of the National Hunt Chase.
Yeah, it was a race that I was eyeing up to have a bet in before the entries came out. I was looking through, and there was just so many non-runners in the Ante-Post market. There was so many horses that either weren't turning up or as I said, just can't qualify or won't qualify. The entries have come out. Obviously, there's a fair number. There's 43 entries. One of them's already not qualified in the short go. Who he was won his novice chase in September 2023, and they've entered him here. I don't really understand what happened there, but
worth a go. See if we sneak him in.
Exactly, yeah. Just see what happens. But yeah, so he's already gone. There's a fair few that have to qualify either in the next couple of days or on the weekend as well. So I do think we're going to be seeing at least 10 of them, probably well, up to 10 at least, won't be qualified. The likes of a Will Do and the other Gordon Elliott horse who I've completed, Cletus Poulor, they're both in the Grand National trial. And they have to finish in the top 4 in that to qualify. So I'd imagine only one of them would be able to do that, surely. But I don't see both of them being able to be good enough to finish in the top 4. But anyway, we'll see on that front. I think there's a fair few non-runners to come out. That's my main point here. Plus, also, there's a couple of horses entered who have been given BHA marks that are too high. So Shannon Royale was given a mark of 148. He's been pulled up since, so it might be a little bit lower, but I can't see it being £3 lower. And Search for Glory was also 147. And again, he's ran pretty poorly since. But again, I can't see him being dropped £2. So I'd probably hazard a guess that Shannon Royale and Search for Glory are going to be out, which is two of the most interesting runners for Gordon Elliott, to be honest. So then you're left with a smaller field. Obviously, Sam Majes, I've touched on, hopefully goes to the Kim Muir. So again, hopefully that would be a non-runner, but we shall see on that front. And I think if I've got the predicted weights in front of me, like the top 18 qualify. If you look below 18, there's only four horses rated above 130 on my list currently. So everything else is in the 120s and the 118s, etc. So if those lot turn up, then we might get 5 places on the day. But I could really see a case here where we end up having a field of like 15, and a lot of bookies go 4 places on the day type thing. Like I think it could cut up, and the only reason it wouldn't cut up is if we have a load of absolute no hopers in there. So I think there's a big opportunity in the National Hunt Chase market. You've got the likes of a Captain Cody, who's been well supported over the last couple of days because he's going to be Willie's #1 in the race. You'd assume he'd have a good chance. He's got the same form as Now Is the Hour, so on a form line through the two of them. He's too big of a price. But the one that I really wanted to get with here is the Neil Mulholland horse Transmission. He's been on my radar for this race, obviously for a very, very long time. But he's kind of been the type of horse where he's just on my back burner, just wasting away to see what happens, because you'd assume something more exciting would qualify, but seemingly nothing really has, to be honest. Obviously, Now Is the Hour is the favourite. He's going to take a fair bit of whacking. And look, I'll be honest, I have backed him, so I'll be very upfront and truthful about that. But I think Transmission, you can currently get 9-1 non-runner no bet, 5 places. Like that is just a no-brainer to me to pick up. Like he's got a very good winning chance. But if he doesn't finish in the top 5, then something's gone drastically wrong, because he is a stayer through and through. If you look for his profile, obviously he started this season finishing second to Highland when he wasn't really put into the race. He likes the race obviously off the pace, never got into it that day. Then the next day he turns up in an amateur riders handicap chase under Patrick Mullins, and he absolutely sluices through the field to win quite cozily off 129. And then obviously we last saw him over fences when he was second to Haiti Couleurs, and he was running off a mark of 132 that day. Again, staying on strongest at the finish. That was only over 3 mile, 1.5 furlongs. He was absolutely motoring home, got beaten 2 1/4 lengths, and he's now going to be £4 better off with Haiti Couleurs. So I think there's obviously a pretty hefty weight swing there in his favour. And then he had the perfect prep for this race as well, where obviously on trials day he ran in the Cleve hurdle, finished 6th or 6th, but he was only beaten 18 lengths, and he was jumping them all like bloody fences the whole way around. And just obviously was not given a hard time because he wasn't there to win. So I think he's got the perfect profile for the race. It's just, as I said, I was expecting something more exciting to come out. It hasn't. So now 9-1, non-runner, no bet, 5 places. I think that is just an absolute no-brainer price to take, and I'd like to add him to my team.
And we shall add him to your team, Jake. Best of luck with Transmission. He's got that Cheltenham form too, which is all important, I think, in this kind of race. So
absolutely, yeah.
So
and he's going to love
he's
the
been
hill
all
over
season.
3-6. Yeah.
Like he went from
Also-
only winning at Plumpton to now only running at Cheltenham.
I was going to say, last
Right.
season, if you remember as well, yeah, that ride in the 3 mile handicap hurdle at Plumpton, where he basically unshipped his jockey, he managed to get back on and still win for staying on strongest at the finish. Like he's just got stamina to burn.
okay, good stuff, Jake. I've been really struggling this week. I've been toying in my mind what I'm going to put up, and in the end, I'm going to go slightly off piste actually from what I told Jake and Dan earlier. I'm going to put up Only by Night for the Arkle, because I really, really fancy her strongly for this race, and I'm pretty sure it's where they're going to end up going, because Gavin Cromwell has got bioluminescence for the mare's chase, and she's got a massive chance in that. I think they might just go Only by Night to the Arkle and see what we can do against Majborough. So far, she's impressed me enormously over fences, and I think you'd be a fool if you didn't see how talented she is over the larger obstacles so far. Her hurdles form, I think, did portend pretty well for a career of fences, but I don't think this well. She's improved markedly for a chase. I mean, she was a winner of Maiden Hurdle. She won a couple of bumpers. She looks pretty smart bumper horse, but it's been fences that have been the making of her. She's done the 3 starts so far. She won her debut at Tipperary, beating Mirazor West very easily indeed, jumping well. She then went and beat Nara, who since followed up, and that was a grade 2 mare's chase. and she beat her really easily on the bridle in that Grade 2 company. Again, jumping supremely well, travelling extremely strongly as well. And then went to Exeter, where she ran a couple of weeks ago in the Agatha Christie's Mares Novices Chase, the listed contest, where the main danger was Fun, who in the end didn't really run a race, but she was bang there or thereabouts for most of the journey, which meant that Only by Night was tracking her. And the two pulled a long way clear of the rest for an early stage in the race. And although the eventual winning margin was only a length, Only by Night over Kilbarry Saints, it's because they took each other on early and Only by Night was just idling a touch in front. So for me, what she's done so far of fences is pretty spectacular. And I do think a race like the Arkle, where they're going to go really fast, is going to play to her strength massively, because the one big asset she has is that she travels so strongly. So the faster they go, the better I think she'll be, particularly over that 2-mile trip. I think she's better over that distance than she is over the 2.5 that she would be running in the Mares Chase. So I think, given the fact that Sergina's come out to the Arkle, it would be a complete no-brainer for the Cromwell team to go to that race and get the mare's allowance and hopefully stalk Majborough into the race and put it to bed. I think she's better than L'Eau de Sud. I know that L'Eau de Sud's achieved a fair bit so far, but I can see her being a stronger mare than he is. And of the others, I'm not scared of anything, really. I think it could be a fairly small field. And Majborough could be the one to beat. But I think they will go quick. Majborough likely to go out in front, isn't he, and set a strong pace, or at least be prominent. So if Only by Night can track him and keep the powder dry for as late as possible, I think she'll have a massive chance in that race. She's really impressed me in everything that she's done so far. And I think she's a better mare than the likes of Put the Kettle On, who won the race in the past. So we'll see how she gets on. So Only by Night is my week 7 selection, Ante-Post.
Did you just kind of look at the Gavin Cromwell entries and just kind of stand down? Like, just, which one do I fancy?
Do you know the one that I haven't gone with is the one that everyone thinks is going to win 6.5? So, but yeah, I think he could have. I have to say, it doesn't take an idiot to realise that he could easily have a very good festival this year. I mean, he's got some pretty strong chances. I think Hello Neighbour's got a big chance in the Triumph. Looks a strong race, but I think that the stronger pace that they go for him is going to be a better horse. And I think, given the fact he's had 2 starts over hurdles so far, 1 graded race in each, and looked pretty good, he's got a massive chance in the Triumph.
Just to confirm, Only by Night is each way, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I should say. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to test it.
10 to 1 each way. Yeah, for the
Win only would be unnecessarily.
That would be
of you.
Bullish by name, bullish by nature, wouldn't it? But I won't be doing that. Fingers crossed. Only by Night in that. Do remember to like, please, our video. We'd love to get your support. 250 likes would be great for episode 7. And we're not far off 3,000 subscribers. That would be an enormous achievement if we could do it by the end of the season. So fingers crossed we get to that point. And that's it from us. For me, Jake and Dan. Until next week. And obviously our final thoughts go with the family and friends of Michael O'Sullivan after his sad passing last weekend. He shall not be forgotten. Until next week here, it's goodbye.